Blood over Brighthaven is a fantasy standalone that promises a dark academia setting, a really interesting trial, and an amazing world building considering how short this book is, but has so much more to offer. So if you haven't read it, in this video I will tell you why you need to pick it up immediately. So this book is written by M.L. Wong and is probably one of my favorite reads this year. And first of all, it's really nice to sometimes read a standalone fantasy series. It can be quite daunting to pick up a series and know that it will be thousands of pages. Even that can be nice as well. So this little thin book felt like quite fun to start reading. And I think the world building and the magic system in this book is amazing, especially considered that it's not supposed to be for more than 400 pages. In this book we get to follow Sayona. She has devoted her whole life to studying magic and will try to do the impossible, becoming the first female ever to study magic at the High Magistry at the University of Magic and Industry. So the whole book starts with her doing the trials to get into the university. And it's really exciting from the get-go. And then we get introduced to the magic system, which is one of the things I really love about this book because it's really interesting and also unique. I won't spoil too much about it, but it's really interesting because they are using logic and are sourcing energy to use with their spells. They also have these spellographs, which they are using to produce their spells and let the energy out into the world. So when you're first introduced to all of this, it can be a little bit daunting, but you get the magic system explained multiple times. So, and there's also a glossary at the end of the book. Yes, so you can go back and check it if you need to. But that's one of the things I loved about this book because I have never read anything like it, and it's also such a big part of the story. And this book is really a lot about social commenting, which also makes it so interesting and fun to read. Because we are both presented with racism, but also a lot of feminism going on in this book. Because this society is so flawed. It's designed by and made for the men in Brighthaven. And everyone else, both the women and the immigrants, are treated very different from these men. And also the book makes these structures so clear. Sayona really has to fight for her place at the university, and then we meet other characters that are really important to the story, which are treated horribly because they are immigrants. And that's why it's so interesting to read about Sayona as well, because she is such a flawed character. She's put under so much prejudice from her peers, mainly because she's a woman, and even though she's better at magic than most of them, she really has to prove herself to get anywhere in this society. And at the same time, see how she's treating other persons in this book. And I don't want to tell you too much, but she's forced to start working with another person that we also get to follow in this book, which makes it clear that she's so privileged and also so racist and is really oblivious about it. And even though she's really trying to develop through this book, it's quite painful to read sometimes. One thing I also thought was really interesting about this book, that it isn't taking place in so many different settings. We are in the city of Tehran, and we are at the academia, and we are at certain other places, but it still feels really intense and interesting. And I think that's kind of impressive because it's not like we're traveling around this world a lot. One thing I thought was quite fun about this book as well is that it reminded me a bit about his Dark Materials or The Golden Compass. Both that we follow a main female character that is quite strong, even though I think Lyra is so much nicer than Sayona as a person. But it's also this dark academia setting where you don't know who to trust. The magic system is kind of similar, not completely, but when they're using their spells and their spellographs here, it kind of reminded me how you use the Golden Compass in those books. It's also heavily themed by faith in both of the books, and that also reminded me about his Dark Materials, because the God theme is quite heavy in those books as well. So I really like that because I love his Dark Materials and I keep rereading them every now and then. And my cat's name is even Lyra because I loved them so much the first time I read them. So that was one fun thing about this book as well. So it's a really thought-provoking fantasy book and I really enjoyed reading it. And there are a few twists that are really mind-blowing in it too. And I won't spoil the ending, but I can say I understand why the author wrote it like it is. And I see that made this book like objectively better. But I personally would have preferred a little different ending, just my personal taste. So if you're looking for your next read that isn't a long fantasy series, you want complex characters, an interesting magic system, social commentary, and so much more, I really think you should pick up Blood over Brighthaven if you haven't yet. Also, if you want to read something similar that you also might like, I think you should check this book out.